All right, let's talk about government surveillance. But probably not in the way you're used to. We're going to dig into a really wild idea. What if the very thing we think protects us from surveillance, demanding accountability, is actually the secret fuel that makes it grow and grow and grow?
Yeah, I know. It sounds completely backwards, doesn't it? We're all taught that rules, oversight, demanding evidence, that's how you keep power in check. But what if, and this is the big what if, in the world of national security, that whole assumption is just wrong?
So this is the paradox at the heart of it all. Look at this. The intention was so good, so clear, right? We wanted to constrain the state's power by making them show their work, provide evidence. But the outcome? Whoa. It's been the complete opposite. The demand for proof didn't limit them, it just gave them a reason to build these enormous systems to collect all the proof, just in case they might need it later.
So, a surprising paradox? How on earth did our best intentions get so twisted? Well, to figure that out, we've got to look at the hidden mechanics of a system we kind of built by accident, one that's doing the exact opposite of what we wanted it to do. And here's the thing, this wasn't an accident, not really. It's not a conspiracy either. It's more like a machine, a self-fueling engine that's been running on its own for decades. And once you see how the gears turn, you can't unsee it. Okay, let's pop the hood and take a look. We're calling this the evidentiary engine. It's this incredibly powerful cycle that takes a totally reasonable demand, show me the proof, and turns it into this unstoppable mandate for more and more surveillance. And here's exactly how that engine runs. It's a 5-stage cycle. Okay, step 1. It all starts with a really good idea, right? The legitimacy requirement. The state has to provide evidence to justify what it does. Simple enough. But then, step 2. The elastic evidentiary standard. Legal terms, like the word relevant, get stretched and stretched and stretched. So what happens next? Step 3. Infrastructure expansion. To meet that super broad definition of relevant, agencies start building massive systems for continuous bulk data collection. They gotta get it all. Then you get to step 4, oversight as a multiplier. The watchdogs, the auditors, they come in to make sure the agencies are following the rules. And how do they do that? By demanding, you guessed it, more data, more systems to prove compliance. And finally, step 5, shock events. A crisis hits, something like 9/11, and the whole cycle just resets with way more urgency and way more power. Now, that 4th step, the oversight part, is such a critical gear in this machine. It's actually driven by this concept from organizational theory called audit culture. The basic idea is that the very act of being audited forces you to constantly monitor yourself more and more. Not to get better results, mind you, but just to prove you're ticking all the boxes and following the process. So accountability itself becomes yet another reason for more data collection. It's wild. And look, this isn't just some abstract theory. This engine has been humming along in the background of US history for over 40 years. So let's take a look at how those gears have actually turned in the real world. We can really break this history down into 3 key phases. First, from about 1975 to 2000, you have what we'll call procedural embedding. That's when the rules got written. Then, from 2001 to 2008, you get expansion through elasticity. This is when those rules get stretched to their absolute breaking point. And finally, from 2008 to 2015, we see doctrinal crystallization. That's a fancy way of saying the stretched rules become permanent, locked in as the new normal. It all kicked off back in the 1970s, and it genuinely started with good intentions. The Church Committee hearings exposed these insane surveillance abuses by intelligence agencies. So their solution was totally sensible: force these agencies to get a warrant, to go to a judge and present some evidence first. This led to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, or FISA, in 1978. And just like that, stage 1 of the engine, the legitimacy requirement, was officially switched on. Okay, now let's fast forward to 2001. After the 9/11 attacks, the USA Patriot Act gets passed, and buried inside Section 215 of that massive law was this one seemingly harmless phrase: the government could collect any tangible things relevant to an authorized investigation. So the keyword here is relevant. But what does that actually mean? And this is where the logic got turned completely on its head. The secret FISA court that was overseeing all of this, they interpreted relevant to mean that in order to find out what might be relevant later, the government needed to collect, well, everything first. This is the elastic standard in action. The rule of the game was no longer find the needle in the haystack. The new rule was collect the entire haystack because the needle might be in there somewhere. And for 10 years, a full decade, That single interpretation was the secret legal justification for the NSA's program to collect the phone records of pretty much every single American. 10 years of bulk data collection. So you have to ask, did it even work?
Well, the answer, and this is according to the government's own independent oversight board, was a pretty clear no. After this massive review, they found that the program had, and I'm quoting directly here, only minimal value in combating terrorism. Minimal value. Wow.
So that just leads to the most obvious question, right? If this incredibly invasive program that ran for a decade produced almost nothing of value, why in the world did it keep going for so long? And this is where we find the engine's true purpose. See, the program's value wasn't about the intelligence it actually produced. Its value was its readiness, its ability to be able to produce evidence if asked. The system's existence became its own justification. The goal wasn't results. The goal was being ready. Evidentiary readiness, they call it.
Okay, so let's talk about why this story, which started over 40 years ago, still matters so much. Because this isn't just a history lesson. That evidentiary engine is still humming along at full speed today, and its logic is being built into the technology we see all around us.
So what are the real long-term consequences of this thing? Well, first, you get ineffective programs that just never die because their real goal isn't results, it's just readiness. Second, the very oversight we rely on to protect us, it accidentally ends up driving the expansion. Third, that collect-it-all logic starts to spread to every new piece of tech, drones, facial recognition, you name it. And finally, private companies get pulled right into this machine, becoming essential cogs.
You know, just think about those automated license plate readers you might see around your own town. The whole justification for building these massive networks isn't really about solving specific crimes that have already happened. It's about collecting all the data, all the time, to build a giant searchable database, just in case a car becomes relevant to an investigation later on. That's the evidentiary engine, running right in your own neighborhood. And all of this leaves us with a really, really tough question to chew on. If the very tools we use for accountability, demanding proof, running audits, having oversight, if they are actually part of the engine that drives this expansion, then how do we ever apply the brakes? How do you stop the machine when the brake pedal is wired directly to the accelerator?